People mocked me for not being good enough for my famous fiancé, calling me a bookworm. Yet I earned a chance to study abroad for my PhD and would later make a huge name for myself in medicine. In my past life, I abandoned my future for love, bending to her needs. And it wasn't until I lay sick in my final years that I finally understood I was the one who needed saving all along. After being reborn, I finally decided to let Ava go. She was born to shine under the spotlight. So I chose to disappear. Going far away overseas by myself, the one she truly loved was the prop master at her side. So I went ahead and suggested we call off the engagement. Entirely in my past life, I was the one who held her captive with that piece of paper. I trapped her for a whole lifetime until the day she died. She could never be with Ethan in the open, but it wasn't until I sat alone in that nursing home that I finally realized I had been trapped my whole life too. After rebirth, the first thing I did was to open the application that had sat on my computer for ages and hit submit the moment I saw that acceptance letter. I felt like I was living in some other world entirely. My advisor, who had mentored me from the start, told me, full of relief before, when I encouraged you to go overseas for your doctorate, you said your fiancé worked in Chicago, so you couldn't go now. You finally came to your senses. As for Ava, she really is a gifted woman. She comes from a wealthy family. Her career took off early, and she made a name for herself in her circle. She's fairly well known right now. She's on the way up, and me, well, aside from decent grades, I was completely unremarkable in every other way if it weren't for the engagement our families had set up. When we were kids, Ava and I never would have had anything to do with each other. I looked at my advisor with determination and said this time, I want to try walking my own path. My advisor patted me on the shoulder and said, the PhD path is long and lonely. You need to get your head straight. First, long as it is nothing compared to how long my past life felt. In that past life, I passed up the opportunity to go overseas for my doctoral degree. My parents kept pushing us to get married quickly. Within a month after we were married, Ava became pregnant. She did not want the baby, claiming it would hurt her acting career, but I was determined to have a whole family. I took charge of nearly every little thing on my own. From that point on, I found myself stuck in endless domestic drudgery. Meanwhile, Ava believed she had done her part and barely came home after that. She was caught up in shows and rehearsals. Her star kept rising higher and higher, flying all over the place for bookings. Wherever she went, Ethan would be there beside her as her prop master beyond the job. He took care of her day-to-day life. As for me, I was stuck in my parents' house juggling childcare while waiting on the elderly. A home my son grew up in, what was basically a single-parent home. I always believed he was particularly attached to me. That is, until the day I saw him getting engaged to Ethan's niece in that private dining room. He was completely brazen. He raised his teacup, grinning from ear to ear, and shouted at me, Dad, have some tea. A month after that, he came to confront me. His voice was ice cold. He told me, Dad, Mom is a career-driven woman. A father like you, who stays at home with the children, you have kept her chained down long enough in this life. That's enough. Then he added, a man of your caliber. It is just sad. Mom has already been more than generous with you. You cannot be greedy and expect to have it all. It seemed the only one held captive by that engagement had always been Ava alone, while I, as if I was destined to be the one devoured by domestic life. So why? When we were still young back then, was I the one who asked how she felt first? And she nodded and went along with the wedding our elders had set up, and it was because of that I abandoned my own career and dreams. She fought tooth and nail in her career while I was stuck taking care of the older folks at home. She was caught up in shows, caught up in rehearsals. I had to handle breakfast, lunch, and dinner for everyone. At the most difficult moments, I would hold my son with one arm and grip a hospital ticket with the other, running the elderly back and forth to doctor visits all by myself, getting prescriptions, settling bills, scrambling every which way. When I hit 50 years old, Ava's career was still booming like never before. She was at the peak of her fame, while my own social circle kept shrinking. I was completely trapped by my circumstances. By then, everyone said I did not deserve her. They all told me to move on. Even that son I had raised all by myself thought that Ethan was the one who belonged at her side, but I refused to give. In the final time I saw my son, things got really ugly between us. He left me stranded on the sidewalk, letting me sink down to the pavement all by myself, watching his back disappear further and further away. Remorse nearly swallowed me whole. If I could do it all over again, I would never ever hand my life over to someone else again. Back to the present. When I got back to the apartment, I stashed the acceptance letter safely, then headed to the kitchen to bake a tray of egg tarts. This apartment belonged to my family. They had let me live here so I could focus on school. So Ava and I stayed there together. On the kitchen calendar, I marked a large circle with red pen. In 2 more weeks, I would be out of there, living the life I had always wanted. No sooner had I drawn that circle than Ava walked in. The door swung open, and behind her came 2 more people, one tall, one small. It was Ethan and his young niece. When they saw me at the door, Ethan gave me that smirking look of his. James, Ava told me to come on up. Hope we aren't causing you any trouble. The little girl had been there plenty of times before. The moment she caught that sweet smell in the kitchen, she dashed straight into the kitchen, grabbed a few of the treats off the tray by herself. There were 6 egg tarts, and they happily split them, 2 each, but they did not leave a single one for me. When I finally walked out of the kitchen, the 3 of them were gathered in a circle, eating and chatting and laughing. The second they took a bite, all 3 of them spit it out at almost the same time. Uncle, it is so bitter. I did not move an inch. I just stood there watching Ava run back and forth, first pouring water, then topping off the tea. Finally, Ethan managed to squeeze out a grin, made his excuses, and headed out. Those little dimples he always showed off did not come out all that time still. What he said was just as kind and forgiving as always. Charlotte, James's baking could use some work. Do not let something this small come between you two. Ava quietly walked them to the entrance. When she returned, I had already turned away and brought another tray of egg tarts out of the kitchen. Ava hesitated before finally speaking up. Eva is my late sister's child. My sister made me promise to look after Ethan before she died. I just wanted the girl to try your baking and see how good it is. I still did not say anything. She lamely added, if it bothers you that much, I will just have them come over less from now on. The next day, first thing I began packing my bags, getting ready to head to Los Angeles in a couple of days. Since I had already decided to call off the wedding, I needed to make that clear early out of respect for everyone. And to keep things from getting messy later, as I was organizing my belongings, I came across a little clay figurine. Ava had given it to me when she was little. She had been so serious about it back that her little chubby fingers all smeared with clay. James, Mom said you are going to be my husband when we grow up. So this is for you. In the end, I tossed that clay figure into my suitcase. Anyway, I did not need that doll anymore. I did not need her either. I got up and drew a large X on that kitchen calendar. 14 days to go until I could leave. That evening, Ava came home very late. She glanced at the dishes on the table and acted like nothing was wrong as she said, I already had dinner out before I came back. But that sneaky eater did not even bother wiping the grease off the corner of her mouth. Ever since what happened last time, she knew that bringing Ethan home would upset me. So she just ate dinner outside and then came back. Lucky for me, I had not gone out of my way to make her dinner that night. After I finished eating, I went to my room. I started getting my papers in order, doing the last minute prep for the semester. That was when Ava appeared behind me. Without a sound, I reached over and shut my laptop. What is wrong? She was quiet for a moment before finally saying, the wedding coordinator and the hotel have both reached out. Can we set the date for September 1st? What a perfect choice. Right on the very first day of my orientation, I lifted my gaze and stared straight at Ava. After 3 seconds, she subtly looked away. In my previous life, she handled everything between us like it was just some business transaction. The courtship, the wedding, the baby, the household. To everyone watching, she seemed thorough and perfect in every way, but that aloofness and chill, only I could feel it until just before she took her final breath. Only then did it finally dawn on me that probably from the start she had been deeply unhappy with this union, except in the end, the only one left hollowed out was me. So I said to her, Ava, have you really decided? She was caught off guard. She clearly did not think I would ask that. And then I heard the very same answer as in my past life. James, you are the only husband I have ever recognized. This time around, I did not waver. Getting married is a big step. We need to talk to both our parents first. There is no hurry. Let's hold off for now. She looked visibly relieved, smiled, and pivoted the conversation. Still reading English lit this late? Do not overdo it. That was my orientation reading for this life. I wanted to take a path I had never taken before to see what life could look like without Ava and just how brilliant James's life could become the third day. Ava was up unusually early when I finally came out of my bedroom. There was already a bowl of crab wontons sitting on the table from my favorite breakfast spot. She rarely put this much effort into winning me over. So I waited for her to say what was on her mind, just as I expected. Ava hesitated. Then finally let it out. James, I cannot go with you to see our parents this time. Eva is sick, and Ethan cannot take care of her by himself. When I heard that, only then did I take my time picking up my chopsticks and begin to eat. I had actually been trying to come up with some excuse to use to keep her from coming home with me perfect. Now it worked out for everyone. When she saw me agree, Ava hurried out the door right away. I glanced at the calendar. 13 days to go today was the day I would go to call off the wedding. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson had always been good to me over the years, but calling off the engagement was not really that difficult. All I had to do was tell them that Ava had a limitless future ahead of her and was about to take off, and that we simply were not right for each other anymore. Removed, the Johnson family living room was so quiet it felt suffocating. I sat to one side, staring down at the cup I was turning in my hands. My mind was all over the place. Mrs. Johnson started to speak more than once, but each time she stopped herself. Over the years, I had heard plenty about Ethan. She could not contain it any longer and finally said what was on her mind. So what if she has a soft spot for Ethan? The engagement between you two is still binding. If she tries to back out, I will be the first one to punish her. Mr. Johnson had always been the one in charge. Since you were the one asking to call this off, we will respect your decision. But James, the bond between our families has lasted for years, and that will not change. We will always think of you as family. These days, everyone gathered around Ava like planets around the sun. Even her own mother and father did not get why I was so determined to call things off, but I knew about this match that had been set. Since we were kids, they had pinned some hopes on it too. In their own way, now that I had taken the initiative, it gave them an easy way to save face as well for the person I would become. This was already a clean enough ending. When it came to the situation with Ava and her family, I did not want to be tangled up in it anymore. In the end, there was still family. Calling off the wedding was just to keep things from getting complicated later. I lied to them. I said Ava was too swamped with work and had asked me to come home alone first. When they heard that, Mrs. Johnson actually felt a bit guilty. She encouraged me to stay at their place for a few more days before I left. That worked out well, because I didn't want to go back to that cramped apartment either and be around Ava all day, every day, with nowhere to hide from her. I stayed at the Johnsons for 10 days. Through all 10 of those days, Ava only called me one time. Once she found out I was at my parents' place, she never contacted me again. She was just like she always had been, always treating our relationship like a business arrangement. She showed no concern and never lost her cool. When I returned, the first thing I did was to mark 10 big red X's on that calendar. One after another. 4 days to go, only 4 days left. I pulled my suitcase up to the building. I had just gotten to the front door when I heard it swing open. Ava was standing there with Ethan and Eva right behind her. You came back? Ava said, a little surprised when she spotted me. Ethan and Eva acted like nothing was unusual. They turned and walked right into my bedroom. I frowned and watched him close my door. As he went in the living room was a disaster. When I looked closer, all of it was my stuff. I turned to Ava. An awkward look crossed her face. Well, there was a huge storm a couple of days ago. Ethan's apartment leaked, so he came here to stay for a bit. Since you were not around and your room was mostly empty, I let him use it. I had not even told her about calling off the wedding, and they had already moved in as if they had every right to be there under my intense stare. Ava was perfectly composed. You can move into my room for now. Just sleep in there, she said, pushing her bedroom door open. By the way, what happened to all those books you had in your room? Why is there barely anything left? Of course, I had gotten rid of them. I sold them figuring I would not need them after we got married. I answered quietly. Ava frowned. Even after marriage, you might still need them. You always need to keep growing. But if you want to sell them, fine. She understood it all from beginning to end, but she had never really cared. Watching me get hollowed out by that home bit by bit. As the one who benefited, Ava reaped all the rewards without a shred of guilt. But the woman who took my sacrifices was also dividing her heart for Ethan. She had no right to do that. None at all. I stayed quiet, my lips tight. When she saw I was not talking, she finally spoke up once more. So, what did your parents have to say? Ava reached over and took my bag from me. I hesitated, then came up with an excuse. I looked at the calendar, and the date does not work. Let's put this off for now and discuss it later. 4 more days I needed that excuse to give myself some breathing room. When the day came for me to go, I would explain it all. Ava looked visibly relieved, a barely noticeable smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. She glanced at the calendar in the living room. I suppose we need to find another good date. Just as she finished speaking, she rushed into the kitchen to start making dinner. Without even noticing what I had marked on that calendar, I noticed on the desk by the window, there was Ava's family records booklet. I was just standing there, hesitant about whether to lend a hand when I heard 3 voices drifting in from the other room, a man's low voice, a woman's playful voice, and a little kid babbling quietly. I sat back down. The truth was now that we had technically called things off. Living under the same roof was no longer right, never mind sharing a bedroom. But with just 4 days to go, there was no time to find somewhere else to stay. After going back and forth in my head, I figured I would just have this meal and later set up a makeshift bed in the living room for the night, just to get by for the moment. Removed. First thing the next morning, I was barely awake. Eva was already causing a commotion in the living room. Ethan did nothing to stop her. He was also banging around in the kitchen. Digging through cabinets, Ava sat on the couch, smiling sweetly as she watched them. Maybe this was the picture-perfect happy family she had in mind. I threw together a quick excuse and said I needed to go get some food, then rushed out the moment I reached the ground floor. I took a long, deep breath. James, you're back already? I thought you want to see your in-laws. My neighbor Susan spotted me and came over to tease me. She is not my mother-in-law. Susan paused, then burst out laughing. She thought I was just defending Ava's image. Fine. She is not your mother-in-law yet. You could start calling her that after the wedding. No kitty. She could see I was not smiling like I used to. Susan paused, uncertain, but finally could not hold back and started in on me in a hushed tone. While you were gone these past couple days, Charlotte brought some man into the house. I asked her about it, and she told me you gave the okay. That guy's clearly bad news. You really approve that. You have not even tied the knot yet. You need to stay sharp and not let a woman like Charlotte slip away. If she were not already promised to you, I would introduce her to my own nephew in a heartbeat. A woman like that, what guy would not want her? They would be falling all over themselves to get to her. Do not be dumb. Even if there were men lining up for her, the one who had actually been there for Ava all along was only ever Ethan. He had nothing to fear because Ava would shield him forever. What I did not anticipate was that out in public, Ava had blamed it all on me, claiming I had given my permission while being so careful not to let a single mark of shame fall on Ethan for him. She had really gone to great lengths, but some things I just could not bring myself to say out loud. Susan noticed how I just let everything slide. She pouted and let out sigh after sigh. Finally, she still had to remind me, full of concern, to be more careful at home. When I returned to the apartment, the living room was deserted, but from my little bedroom, I could hear the sound of someone rifling through things. A moment later, Eva came hopping out, holding a crumpled up piece of paper in her hand. I narrowed my eyes to see it was from New Year's last year. A portrait I had drawn of Ava. The woman in the picture had that same cool, aloof expression, but a barely noticeable smile played at the corners of her lips. The room felt as warm as springtime, and the fireworks outside for a couple of hours that night lit up the entire sky. In those days, I was the only one Ava saw. I had always believed that for many years after we married, we would relive that same kind of small, unremarkable happiness. What I did not realize was that it was the single time she had ever looked at me that way. Right then, that portrait in Eva's hands was already damaged and crumpled with a sticky smear of candy stuck to the back. Ethan came out right after her. Kids are clueless. You are not going to blame a little girl for this, are you, James? His voice was sweet as honey, but that undisguised smugness underneath and the scorn in his gaze were right there for everyone to see. If you know she does not know any better, then teach her. He did not expect me to fire back like that. He stood there. Stunned. Kids are the most perceptive about tension. Eva suddenly charged at me. Her grubby little hand smacked against my chest, leaving a grimy black handprint on my clothes. You are not allowed to not believe my uncle. The little girl's voice was high and piercing. It drilled right into your eardrums. Ava came rushing in through the door, grabbed Eva, and pulled her into a tight embrace. I did not look at Ava. I just stared at that piece of paper on the ground. Ava looked where I was looking and froze. She clearly understood a few words caught her throat, but she choked them back down. Ethan, meanwhile, looked even more pleased with himself. He put on this terribly guilty face. Charlotte, this is my fault. I should have watched Eva more closely. At that moment, I burst out laughing. All three of them turned to stare at me. I bent over and picked up the portrait and held it up to the light. This painting, I got it wrong. The room was never that well lit back then. When I finished, I tossed the picture into the garbage and walked to the kitchen. Without a word, Ava snapped her head up, staring at my back as I walked away, forgetting for a moment about Eva, who was still wailing and fussing. She came after me into the kitchen and stood there hesitating before finally speaking. Looking uncomfortable, I have been busy trying to find an apartment the last couple days. In a few more days, Ethan will move out with Eva. I know you do not like him. Just hold on a little longer. Without much thought, I just said fine. Either way, I would be gone from here in only 3 days. This was my parents' apartment anyway. Once I was gone, whatever they did behind closed doors would have nothing to do with me. I agreed to easily. Ava found herself a loss for words or face. Went through all kinds of colors, looking completely humiliated. She thought I was still upset about that scene in the living room and put her hand out to block me. Eva is just a little girl. I have told you over and over, I only look after them because my sister made me promise before she died. Ethan has had a rough life. Can you please stop always thinking the worst of everyone? I gave a bitter laugh. So you bring him into our home and tell everyone that I gave permission? Ava was speechless, her mouth opened, but nothing came out. I gave a small smile. No matter what excuses she made, that turmoil and ugliness inside her could not fool anyone. I still had respect for our parents, and I did not want to destroy her career, but things could only move forward like this. Removed. First thing the next morning, I woke up. The memory of Eva's noise from the day before was still rattling around in my brain in that small storage closet downstairs. Some of my things were probably still there while they were all still asleep. I went down to collect my belongings. Having lived there all those years, even though I'd spent the last couple weeks getting ready, there were still plenty of things scattered around the place. I went through each item one at a time, thinking of them as my luggage for the rest of my life. This time, I did not want any more ties to Ava at all. If I was going to leave, I was going to leave without a trace. In the end, I filled 3 large bags. When I opened the door, Ava had already set out breakfast. She looked at what I was carrying and Pa. Used, where are you taking all that? I said flatly, to the trash. Too much junk. Ava looked at the bags, then did not say another word about them. She turned and knocked on the next room. Ethan, Eva, get up. Breakfast is ready. The moment Eva saw me, she gave a loud huff and pulled her breakfast closer to herself. And Ava walked over with a plate holding 1 fried egg and smiled at me. You are up? Here, I made this egg for you. She glanced over at the pile of food in front of Eva, and her smile became embarrassed. Eva, be a sweetheart. Get some Uncle James, okay? I did not have the patience to watch this whole act play out, so I turned and left. The semester was only days away now. I'd taken care of most of the paperwork and planned to go get some foreign cash and see if there was anything else I needed before leaving the country. Once I had everything in order, I reserved a hotel room. Even though I would be gone in just 2 days, seeing Ava no matter where I turned was honestly giving me the creep sense. She believed that I was jealous of Ethan, then I would just play along, let her keep believing that, and use it as an excuse to leave. Once I had everything settled, I finally went back. The second I stepped inside, I saw Eva playing with my passport. My mind went blank. What are you doing? I ran over and grabbed the passport out of her hand, scaring Eva so badly she tumbled off the chair onto the ground, wailing uncontrollably, and drew Ethan out of his room. What is wrong with you? Who said you could hurt Eva? Ethan pushed me hard to the side and gingerly picked her up. I was trembling with rage. I put my passport back carefully into my bag. I am bullying her? Did you not see what she just did? Who gave you permission to touch my things? Get away from me. Ethan got to his feet with the girl in his arms and stared at me icily. You have not even married Ava yet. You do not get to call the shots here. He carried her to the door, then stopped and turned back to add quietly, even if you do marry her, you will never be as good as me. The door slammed shut with a loud bang. Ethan's hatred for me only showed itself when Ava was not there, revealing itself completely before Whenever I dealt with him, I was always backing down over the years, following Ava everywhere. He had also grown more capable and become increasingly confident. Everyone said that the two of them were the perfect team. Compared to that, I was just some guy who stayed home with the kids, utterly insignificant. But being reborn into this life, I suddenly understood. No matter how great he was, I had my own strengths too. Why should I stand on a scale with Ethan and be measured against each other all for someone like Ava, who was never worth a fight? Apart from Ava, was I really nothing without her? I could keep learning and go further, contribute to medical progress for all of humanity. I could go out and see a larger world, learn so much more. This cesspool would only hold me back from moving forward. As for Ethan, when I first came back, I also thought about taking serious revenge on him in that past life. He had turned my marriage into a sham. I had imagined making a scene at a theater company or exposing all his dirty laundry on the internet, but what was the point? As long as Ava wanted, she had 100 ways to keep shielding Ethan and make sure he came out just fine. Besides, if Ava did not even want him, even if Ethan stood in front of her completely naked, she would not look twice. What was the point? It was nothing but a doomed love, rotten to the core. I did not want to spend this new life exhausting myself fighting with him. So I told Ethan very calmly, listen up, whatever is going on between you and Ava, whether you acknowledge it or not from this moment on, it has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to marry her. If you're smart enough to get what I'm telling you, then put your energy into Ava and stop coming after me. Because if I ever change my mind, you are not going to like what happens. Ethan froze and quickly shook his head, denying everything as if he was worried he had pushed me too far. Finally, he carried the child back to his room. Clearly unhappy about it, I packed up my own belongings and gave the apartment one final glance. Signs of another man living there were all over the place. There was nothing there worth missing anymore. I turned and walked out, removed. When I got back to the hotel, I put my bags away, quickly sat down, and started typing out a text to Ava. Even though this time around, she still had not treated me particularly well, in many ways at least so far we had not really had a complete blow up the life before we had been a burden to each other, caught up in each other's mess. Until the very end, neither of us came out well. If I could manage it, I wanted to make everything clear in this life. In the message, I did not mention where I was going. I only told her that I had decided to go on with my medical PhD. As for our engagement, she did not want to marry me, and I did not plan to marry her either. Let this whole thing be finished from now on. We would go our separate ways and find our own happiness. I was only halfway through writing the message and was just about to press send when someone knocked on the door. Ava stood there. She was out of breath, like she had run all the way there. How did you find this place? She sucked in several big breaths before she could respond. I finally found you. You are okay. That is all that matters. I stayed quiet, figuring she was there to interrogate me again. Enough. Stop being angry. Come back with me, Ava said, and tried to squeeze past me inside, reaching for my stuff to help me pack. I turned my phone display dark and moved my hand behind my back. Then I noticed her eyes shift to the passport lying on the table. Ava's face dropped. Where are you going? Now it was my turn to be stunned. I had not put everything away properly. That was how Eva had gotten to them that afternoon, worried she would damage them. I had just laid them out to sort through them. When she saw how calm I was, Ava breathed out slowly in relief. You need to put those away carefully. We need them for our honeymoon. She gave the passport to me and told me to put it in my inner pocket. I did not overthink it and just did what she asked. Then I stopped her hand as she tried to keep packing. Ava frowned. You are still angry? Eva was in the wrong, but she is just a little girl. Quit causing a scene. I just do not get it. Eva is usually so good. So why is it that every time you are around, you two end up at odds? She started to say something else, but then she met my steady, calm gaze and stopped herself. I just asked her one thing. Does Ethan know you came looking for me? Ava got a little irritated. What does he have to do with this? Why do you keep mentioning Ethan? I ignored her protest and went on. My guess is he does not know. If he did, you would not be standing here. I'm your fiancé. When we argue, you coming to find me makes perfect sense. So why do you instinctively not want to say anything to him? Why is it that around him, you always naturally steer clear of anything having to do with me? Every time we argue, you claim you only look after him because of your sister. You have more than one sister, so why is he the only one you care about this much? Charlotte. I said her name quietly. If you do not love me, then let me leave. Ava's face went pale. She swayed a little after quite some time. She finally managed to say, "Since you refuse to come home, then stay here and think about what you have done. I will come for you in a few days." Ava turned to go. Her footsteps were uneasy. "I never wanted to hurt you. I need to go back and plan the wedding." Listening to her unsteady footsteps fade away, getting more and more distant, I shut the door with a blank face. How ridiculous in her mind, her being willing to arrange a wedding and actually go through with it was some huge gift she was bestowing on me, and I was supposed to fall to my knees in thanks. Removed. Once Ava was gone, I checked into my flight on my phone, and then went out to dinner with a friend from college. One of my best since we graduated. Everyone had gone their separate ways by the time I returned. I might never see him again. Over dinner, he hesitated for a while, then finally asked. He knew a bit about what was going on with Ava and me. "James, I thought you said you were getting married after we graduated. So why are you going overseas again?" Long-distance relationships, a lot of couples do not survive that. I smiled and shook my head. "I am not getting married." Then I lifted my drink to being young, to friendship, and to me. We clinked our cups together and downed all three in one go. When I got back to the hotel, I took a shower early and got into bed. I expected to be tossing and turning all night, but I ended up sleeping all the way through until morning without waking once. When I woke up, I headed directly to the airport. Right before boarding, I sent the text I had been editing again and again to Ava. Not long after I sent it, my phone would not stop buzzing. I shut it down right away in that instant. When the plane lifted off, I felt like my entire self had gotten lighter, almost like I could see the person I used to be, saying one word to the me of now: "Thank you." The second the plane touched down, as I stepped onto that foreign land for real, my nose suddenly started to burn. In that previous life, I could never bring myself to make that move. But this time around, as long as I wanted to, it was actually this easy to just do it. I collected myself and went to the university to sign in that other life. I never once Ally stepped onto a college campus. This time, I treasured this chance more than anything aside from meals and sleep. I was either in a classroom or holed up in the library. Through all those days, besides staying busy, I just got 3 phone calls from Ava. The first call came a month into the semester. She went to great lengths and finally managed to track down my new number. When an unfamiliar area code lit up my screen, I already knew it was her on the phone. Ava was extremely emotional. She said she would not accept breaking off the engagement, that in her heart, I had always been her husband. After 30 seconds, I ended the call. The second call came 2 months into the semester on a night when snow was falling everywhere. Her voice sounded exhausted, but she still told me slowly that she had found Ethan an apartment and a job and had made it crystal clear to him that she would never see him again. I did not say a word that day. I just listened silently until she finished. The third call came on Christmas Day again, on a night when snow had sealed the windows shut. This time, I finally said something. "Ava." That was the day my final grade were posted. I got an A at the beginning of the semester. I had struggled with my coursework, grinding through the language, going to lectures and running to the lab, as well, always rushing to stay on track. My experiments kept failing. 2-1 failure after another. No one could tell when I would finally get something to work on the phone. Ava listened in silence, her breathing so faint it was nearly impossible to hear. At last, I told her, "But you know what, Charlotte? I'm happy now. I'm never going to shut myself in again." Her voice suddenly broke, and she answered, exhausted, "But I miss you." See that her subject is always me. She never truly thought about what I was feeling, even in a moment that felt like we were making peace. After we hung up, I stood on a street corner in a foreign land and cried like there was no tomorrow. In my past life, no matter how hard I fought, how much I screamed and raged, how much I blamed myself and mourned, the tears never came. I had nearly forgotten that it was possible to cry this hard. When I wiped my face dry, I started studying with more intensity than ever. In my second year of the doctorate, on one particular experiment, I finally broke through. The journey from the lab to the clinic was still a long one, but as long as I kept going, thousands upon thousands of patients would someday benefit from my work. Late each night, when I looked up from my workstation and saw my peers around me, still buried in their own research, a wave of something would rise up inside me, some kind of unnameable strength. The feeling of giving everything for a dream was truly amazing. Eventually, I found out from a fellow student that Ava had married, and the man was Ethan. When he told me about it, he chose his words very cautiously. I heard that Ava came to your city to rehearse some performance. When Ethan found out, he went over there and caused a huge scene. I did not get all the details, but apparently the next day, they ended up sleeping together. Ava claimed she would never go for it, but she ended up getting pregnant anyway. I did not say anything this time around. She had still gone into marriage out of a sense of duty, as a daughter, as a mother, but the one thing she never actually fulfilled was being a wife. Toward the end of our conversation, my classmates sighed. When you first left the country, I actually thought losing Ava was a mistake for you. But now I see that a man who lives his own life is the one who truly stands out. James, you are the one out of all of us that everyone looks up to now. After 7 years, I earned my doctorate and came back home with a body of research under my belt. The rest of my life was lived with extraordinary brightness and fullness. In the end, James walked away without a backward glance. He said, I finally stopped blocking myself in. The gentlest revenge is not that I have a better life than you. Instead, it is that I finally stopped making you the center of my world. Some people are not the answer, but you can always become your own.